Welcome to The Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, a production of LibertyNation.com, hosted by Mark Angelides.
We have moved beyond the days of cogent argument and skilled debate into a realm where sloganeering is not only considered powerful but has become the primary source of politicking. Everyone appreciates a good quote, especially ones that impart wisdom or clarify a substantive truth. Yet we're now asked to buckle under the pressure to voice petty slogans that lack substance and, in fact, are slyly engaged in undermining the very foundations of what we may believe to be right. Of course, I'm referring to the slogan Black Lives Matter. It's on clothing, apparel, buildings, and even on the streets of the cities. And any who dare disagree are hounded, punished, and shamed. Has there ever been another political slogan that requires such obedience? History shows us that words have meaning and can live on as a source of inspiration long after the world in which they were first uttered has moved on. But there's a unique difference. These mottos, these slogans, were adopted by people often as a defiant cry against tyranny, whereas today it is tyranny enforced. Consider for a moment, we see mobs rampaging, demanding that white people take a knee in subservience and say Black Lives Matter to be forgiven for something they played no part in. But it's not a one-off occurrence. Those who prostrate themselves do not receive an ally card that indemnifies them from any further humiliation. These demands are, as George Orwell described, quote, "Always at every moment there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who's helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever." End quote. And while this boot stamping is merely of the verbal variety right now, we've seen enough violence, intimidation, and even murder from those supposedly peaceful protesters to know what physical abuse is not far away. The phrase Black Lives Matter is a clever slogan, but it comes with insane and almost implausible arguments to scaffold it. How can anyone say that black lives don't matter without being deemed a monster? But of course, the popular retort is all lives matter. Surely this makes sense. But no, it's not enough for the mob. All lives matter apparently takes away the importance of this moment in history, conveniently forgetting that the organization Black Lives Matter was around the last time a general election was held. What a coincidence. And what happens to those who espouse the oh-so-evil retort? Well, violence, naturally, public shaming, police investigation on occasion, the firing from your job, social ostracization, doxing, and, of course, verbal abuse. It's almost as if the slogan was designed to be argument-proof, with the help of a friendly media machine, of course. So what is the response to this Marxist movement and the useful idiots who have been tricked into endangering their own future freedoms? As ever, history gives us the answer. In 480 BC, at a narrow pass known as Thermopylae, or the Hot Gates, 300 Spartan warriors stood against the army of the King Xerxes of Persia. It's a familiar tale, and one that never fails to quicken the breath and get the heart pumping. But there's one phrase among all of the dialogue that survives that still holds us in thrall today. Molon Labe. Without going too in-depth into the story, as it is a well-known tale, I'll just cover the basics to present exactly what it meant in that context. King Leonidas of the Spartans, at the head of an army that included his famed 300, sought to block Xerxes at a narrow pass, thus providing time for the other Greek city-states to prepare to rally and to defend. We know from Herodotus that for 2 days the armies fought, with Leonidas' troops inflicting massive casualties on the Persians, until they were betrayed, and a secret path led to their falling. Perhaps what we remember most is not the battles or the surrounding story, but the words of passion. When Xerxes said to the Spartans, offering them a chance to become an ally under the Persian Empire, with him as the ruler obviously, he said, "Lay down your arms." King Leonidas replied, "Molon Labe," Now, this has been translated in so many different ways, the most common being "come and take them." Perhaps unsurprisingly, this motto has been adopted by firm supporters of the Second Amendment. In some ways, it's akin to saying, "You can take my gun from my cold, dead hands." It's a challenge. But Molon Labe actually translates to something far more succinct. These Spartans were Lacedaemonians from Laconia, and they were sparse users of words. It's where we get the word laconic. Molon Labe more rightly translates as "having come, take." It's a beautifully dismissive phrase, and one that applies not only to gun rights, but to all rights. You see, when someone asks you to kneel or kowtow or to parrot their special phrase of support under threat of intimidation, they're asking you to surrender your dignity, your self-respect, your personal power and individuality, and in fact, your right to exist freely in the world. And they don't just want it once, they want it to be ongoing, like a boot stamping on a face, forever. To comply is an abject surrender of your freedoms. This is something we will all have to consider, perhaps sooner rather than later. It's impossible to argue against the slogan with a skillful dissection of the words, with counterclaims or with long-winded explanations. The only answer to one slogan is another, more powerful slogan. For some of you who are liberty-minded, it may be a question that you've asked yourself. How far would you go to protect your freedom? Would you be a King Leonidas, or would you take a knee? Would you mutter Black Lives Matter, knowing that its utterance is supporting a violent Marxist agenda that values not human life nor dignity? Or would you say, "Having come, take"?
Go deeper on the topic discussed in this video, head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for liberty.
The Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, a LibertyNation.com production.
Available at Libsyn, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, on Roku, and other fine podcast providers.